There, welcome back to the Smell of Logic channel. I am Ramona, and we're going to do some more paranormal, supposedly, paranormal stories, encounters, people reporting stuff on Reddit because it's fun. Hope you are enjoying these. This should be the last in this series, and until I change my mind, which happens on occasion. If you enjoy coloring books or even reading weird stuff, go check out my Amazon authors page. There's a link in the description of every single video. And let's get started on this. Ready? Story number one. I have an extraordinary memory from when I was about 7, which was probably in first grade. So towards the end of it says the 1900s, I'm assuming 1990s. I got off the bus at the end of my driveway and made the usual trek up to the house. The last thing I remember is waking up on the front porch. I come to and I'm on my front porch. It's nighttime, and I was petrified of the woods at night. I start freaking out, but I don't recall ever trying to get into the house. It was like I just knew I couldn't go inside and that I was doomed to be on the porch. I also noticed I was wearing a gothic-looking black and purple lace dress. I decided to curl up in a ball in my dog's bed and peek out from under the railing at the woods to keep watch if something tried to eat me. I somehow fell asleep like that, and when I woke up, I was in my bed. It was time to get ready for school. I asked my mom what had happened the day before, and she said I had eaten my corn dog and then gone up to my room to play as usual. What the F? Why wasn't she concerned that I couldn't remember the previous day? My mom was very nonchalant about it. Story 2. I have a few stories, but my most disturbing one was when I was asleep at my friend's house. I initially was going to sleep in one of her daughter's rooms since they were both gone for the night. As I lay there, I started hearing what I can only describe as a father yelling at a child. The voices weren't clear, they were mumbled, but the anger was apparent. It went on for a couple of minutes when I said out loud, "Will you just effing stop?" Once I did this, something outside the window by my head hit something outside hit the window by my head very hard and loud. I freaked out and went to the living room to lie on the couch. My heart was beating so hard. About 5 minutes after I went to the sofa, a bright light started shining through the windows in the kitchen and behind the couch. It went back and forth as if something were looking for me. My friend lived in the country, but the road near her house wasn't angled, so there weren't any headlights from cars that would be coming through the windows, especially not from the sides. When the light stopped, I began to feel as though someone was in the room with me. I don't know how to explain that feeling, but I just didn't feel alone. Her dog, Angel, started pacing around the room as if she were uneasy, and eventually jumped onto the couch beside me. I started hearing heavy footsteps near the sofa, and Angel began to growl a little. I was so freaked out that I was banging my friend's bedroom door, but she didn't hear me. She always had several fans on at night for white noise to help her sleep, along with some meds. I eventually fell asleep and told my friend about it in the morning. She's never had any weird things happen to her, but she saw how freaked out I was. I never slept over at her place again. Story 3. Mine was more in the way of a dream, or multiple layers of a dream. My family and I stayed at a tiny condo in Hawaii for a few years. And this was a few years ago. Like, think like Japanese tiny living, where there's one room and the kitchen is right next to the bathroom. It was fine, but I just felt uneasiness in that place. Everything from the lobby to the slower elevator at the room just felt off. I don't usually have night terrors or anything, but I had them every night in that room. It was just the worst, and the worst was on my last night. In my dream, I was being chased by a demon with a red face. We were in an old Japanese home, and the demon was chasing me through various rooms. I then woke up from the dream, but then it felt like Inception, where I was actually still asleep. The demon came back and continued chasing me, so I kept trying to give myself that feeling of falling to wake myself up. I'm fully aware I'm dreaming, and I know I need to escape. Then my husband wakes me up, and I finally feel relief, only for the demon to show up again and start laughing and mocking me, saying, "You're still asleep. You're never going to wake up." It's when I start panicking and screaming my husband's name in the dream. Then he finally wakes me up because he hears my muffled screams, which I'm trying to make while I was asleep. I've been over with my husband for over 20 years, and he knows I don't have nightmares like this, or talk or scream in my sleep ever. I spoke to my friend who grew up in Hawaii about this. He told me how a lot of places around the island are haunted because back when there were all the tribes and fighting, you had people burying bodies everywhere, and when the hotels and everything got built, a lot of them were built on top of these burial sites. Could this have been just a bad dream? Sure, I've had dreams within dreams before, but the fact that it was the same demon pursuing me for like 3 or 4 layers of a dream is what terrifies me, like it was messing with me in my unconscious state. Story 4. Till this day, I will never forget this moment in my life. I will still question what it was. In the late 2000s, my sister and I were walking by an old karate school that used to be located up the street from our house, behind a small plaza. One day, while walking and exploring, we stumbled upon a gate in the ground between some flowers that had been planted in front of a karate school. When we opened it, I looked down, and it was almost like a cave-like structure. I noticed a person sitting below with their head between their knees. They were pale white, worn cobwebs covering them, no hair and no clothes either. We called down to them and asked if they were okay, and the moment we did, they looked up at us. What really shook the F out of me was till this day is that when they did, I noticed they had no eyes, no mouth or nose, just a blank, pale face. My sister turned pale and screamed and started running away. I closed it so quickly, and we both ran back home. I went back by myself, and when I looked again, there was nothing down there but cobwebs. My sister tells me she still remembers it, but vaguely what it looked like. We were kids and didn't have any phones at the time, otherwise I would have taken a photo. But it still sits in my mind till this day. Story 5. This is one of many stories that I have. One evening I was home alone. Parents were out of town, up in the city. We lived in a neighborhood far from the city, really, and my older brother was out with friends partying. It was just me, and I was finishing up some homework assignment I had for school on Monday. This was a Friday. As I was doing my homework, my dog was inside my room at the time. He rushed out of my room, out of the door, went to the back door, and rushed out the doggy door. And started barking the loudest I have ever heard her bark before. I thought, who the hell could that be? Not my parents. Totally not my brother. I got up, checked my window, and saw a black Mercedes at the front gate. I don't have any relatives who own a Mercedes, so I knew it was a stranger's car, but nobody got out, and I didn't see anybody inside either because the windows were tinted. After a few minutes, the car just drove away. That day was the weirdest experience of my life as a kid. I literally can't explain anything other than that. Really, the clearest story I've got. Story 6. My daughter, her 2 kids, 7 and 8 years old, and I saw a shadow man wearing a hat walk down the hallway, and I was glad, actually. He went toward the kitchen, disappearing for a second behind a wall, and then reappeared in the kitchen, which was brightly lit. Pots and pans began banging on the stove, as if someone were picking them up and slamming them down. This lasted about 3 seconds in the kitchen, and then he was gone. There wasn't one single pan on the stove. Everything was in the cupboards. All of us at the same time darted out, "What was that?" Story 7. 2002, shopping at J.C. Penney's for a job interview suit. I walked in, looked up, and was suddenly completely shaken because I had done it. Because I had just done it. I had already spent the afternoon finding and trying on the suit, then buying it, but it was 2 p.m. again, and my money was still in my wallet. I knew exactly where to find it, what the signs would look like, the salesgirl's name, and everything. I rushed through all of it, short of breath, and took my new clothes home, completely freaked out for the rest of my life. Either I'm both psychic and crazy, or I really did that shit twice, and time was broken that day. More recently, I was watching the lunar eclipse, and an enormous 2D object, shaped like a ruler with a round light on each end, passed diagonally between me and the moon, doing a seesaw motion. I got one bad photo of it before it disappeared. Story 8. Okay, so a few things to note before this story. My grandmother was very sickly, lived not even 5 minutes away from us. She had no voice and spoke only in a whisper. And last but not least, she had no phone at the time. Now for the story. One night, around midnight, my mom and sister and I were in my sister's room talking to one of my aunts on the phone. All of a sudden, my mom starts getting private calls on her phone, with about a minute or so in between each phone call. She answers the first couple, but no one would say anything, so she starts ignoring them. After she starts rejecting the call and not answering at all, they start coming back to back. As soon as it's ignored, it's ringing again. So she says, "I don't know who keeps calling me, but I feel I need to go check on Mom." My sister, still on the phone with my aunt, says, "I'm going to go with her. We'll call you back." Once my sister hangs up, she starts receiving private phone calls too. So now my mom goes and tells my dad that she's going to go check on my grandmother. And of course, he says he'll take her because it's late. So now we all go. The whole drive, both phones are ringing back to back with private calls. So I pull into my grandmother's apartment complex. My dad says, I'll answer. As soon as he says hello, we hear Kika, my mom's nickname, in my grandmother's whisper. So, of course, she frantically tells my dad, That's my mom, hurry. And that is where the most important detail of this whole story happened. My grandmother did not have a phone at the time. How could she call? The phone had broken, so they were going to bring her another one the following day. Now we're at the apartment. The phone calls have stopped, and we don't realize we don't have a key. So now everyone is there. My aunt, uncle, and almost all of her kids. So they all agreed to break the window in the back, and they could all pitch in to pay for it. So right before that happens, my cousin, who lived with my grandmother, comes around the corner and is shocked to see us there so late. So he says, What's wrong? To which my grandmother responds, I keep getting these weird phone calls, and I came to check on my mom. Where were you? He replies, I was at a party at my girlfriend's house. She lived in the same complex, but something told him to come back and check on Mom, so I left. He called my mom because she raised him. Now he opens the door and everyone rushes in. Now that's where it gets weird. As soon as we go in, my grandmother is sitting in the dark with just her TV on. She's sitting at this very, very edge of her bed as if she's sliding off with her feet, but something is pushing her forehead up. She's mouthing Kika. As soon as we turn on the light, her arms fly up and her forehead goes back as if something pushed her head back, like it was holding her up just long enough for us to get there. Like I said before, my grandmother was very sickly and had no strength to hold herself up like that. So now comes the chaos of figuring out what's happening. My mom jumps on her bed and holds her head up. My grandmother is sweating profusely, so she instantly knows it's her sugar that's gone extremely low. She's asking for sugar, water, soda, jam, anything that'll get her sugar up. All while my sister is on the phone with 911. We managed to get her sugar level at least a little up until they arrived. Thankfully, she was okay. Now, while we were all sitting around crying, scared, and talking about what had happened, my sister gets one last private call. When she answers, a man's voice says, I hope everything is okay now, and hangs up. We never found out who that person was, and that ultimately led to the night where everyone decided my grandmother shouldn't live on her own anymore. We've never been able to explain any of it. The calls, my grandmother not having a phone, but us hearing her voice, whatever it was, holding her head up. We still talk about that night till this day because it's just so bizarre. My grandmother has since passed, and not a day goes by where I don't think about her. But that night will always haunt me. I was young, and I still remember everything because of how scared and chaotic everything was for so many reasons. But truthfully, many things happened in that apartment. So whether it was the apartment itself, or the stories of my grandmother or great grandmother being into witchcraft are true, I'll never know. Because although it seems like whatever it was helping, it felt anything but good. Anyway, thanks for sticking around. I have many more things that happened that I'd love to share. I know it sounds unbelievable. They really happened. I saw them with my own eyes. I've told the story to people, and some don't believe me, but I remember it clearly. Story 9. When I was young, my best friend and I were playing with dolls. When we got bored, she'd ask me to put the dolls away and let's do something different. As I went to open the curtain, the bed was raised so you had toys underneath. A pair of hands shoved me, and when I looked up, I saw a pair of eyes staring back at me. When I was 6 years old, I had a dream that at the age of 10, I would receive a wardrobe, and at midnight, it would tip over, causing everything to fall out. At the age of 10, I got a wardrobe, and at midnight that night, it tipped over and everything came out. From that moment on, I had vivid dreams that often came true. The thing that I can't get out of my head is the experience from my younger days. As I grew up, the dreams became more vivid and terrifying, as I seemed to have predicted a family member's death, and it spooked me. As I'm now 27, I have often had dreams that come true. The more prominent thing now is hearing and seeing things that don't want to be there, such as hearing my name repeated multiple times when no one else is in the room, which led me to the room where the voice came from. That's my experience. I'm not skeptical and never will be. I 100% believe in the paranormal. Story 10. Hit something with my car with all of my brothers in the car. It looked like a rabbit, but it was the size of a large deer. When we turned around to examine it more, it was entirely gone. We hit it with both sets of tires. There's no way something could have lived. Caught a pale creature with ribs showing in wrong proportions. It just makes sense. Arms were too long, stomach was too small, arms way too long, hands curled behind like arthritis, blurred legs on the trail cam. Looked like a pale crawler. Some buddies and I were in the Appalachian Mountains. We heard a friend's voice yell, "Hey guys, we're back." About 2 hours later, they did actually get back. Okay, so there you go. Some weird, true, unusual paranormal stories. Hopefully they entertained you. If they did, if any of these videos of mine entertain you, go check out another one. There's a whole bunch here, a lot to choose from. Thank you again for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.